about 16 companies: Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Newell Rubbermaid, UPS, Delta Airlines, Intercontinental Exchange just bought the New York Stock Exchange. Guys, what do you see in terms of the relationship that you have, number one, with these companies? Number two, have they been supporting your innovation? And kind of three, can they learn from you?
Yeah, I'll start that one. So, you know, I had come from the agency world for 15 years and working with brands, building websites, social media, a lot of the stuff Donovan does today at Sandbox. And now being on the startup side for a year, there is absolutely a push for these big companies to become more innovative. Coca-Cola, Delta, Turner have all been on visits to the Atlanta Tech Village, for instance, where they take a half day, they talk to different startups. They're just trying to learn and start to understand the process. So I think that's great. I think more can be done there. And then the startups in town could certainly use a little bit more of a trial period with some of the bigger companies. And you're seeing some of that, but that's going to help this. That's one thing that we have, to your point, fourth most Fortune 500 companies. That's one thing we have that some other cities don't, that we need to take advantage of. And we have these great big businesses, but they're also big businesses now. And it's very difficult for them to innovate. So embracing the startup community and kind of being a part of that, I think, is something they're all trying to figure out, but they are trying.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. They are definitely all trying, in some in different ways, right? Chick-fil-A has now the Hatch, where they work off-site. It's a completely different innovation center where the whole job is to innovate. I mean, all you know, everything's on wheels, so they can move around a restaurant and configure things differently and that kind of thing. But also, they are reaching out and embracing. I mean, in fact, Delta Airlines reached out to the Atlanta Tech Village and said, hey, we want to host an event for our digital team, how to think like an entrepreneur, because we're so used to thinking like a big corporation. And so Jeff and I actually, you know, Jeff kind of constructed it, and we moderated the whole thing, and it was an all-day session where we taught them how to think more nimbly and think more innovatively, and how they do things and their processes. And you know, it's funny. A lot of it goes back to you know, fear, right? They're afraid of taking risks because it might be wrong, and you know, so part of the message there was that their operations and their budgets need to be constructed to allow for that. Coca-Cola is a great example. Their budgets are set up where 70% is for tried and true, 20% is for things that there's some data, but they're not quite sure and they can't quite prove it, and then 10% is for pure experimentation. They just know that, you know, that is basically a write-off unless something hits. So they've constructed their budgets in a way to allow for that element of innovation. And I think that a lot of the bigger companies that are in Atlanta can take cues from that.
I think the best way that this can be answered, or a good way to be answered, is the story of Insightful. So leveraging big companies in Atlanta depends on the industry and a lot of other things. But Insightful is a company in the Atlanta Tech Village. They've got a booth here actually, social media marketing platform. And I remember 18 months ago, they were 4 people, right? Now they're hiring, I think 20 openings, and they got some really big accounts starting out. Like they got Delta, they Home Depot, Southern Company, and that just helps tell the story to investors. It validates the market, you get feedback, and that's something where you can build a great product, and if it's applicable to that big business, you can just go ahead and sell it, and it's a lot easier when you can just drive down Peachtree Street.